When my fiancé stood up at our engagement party and announced to 50 of our closest friends and family that he was marrying a gold digger, I felt my entire world shatter in that moment. But what happened next? When I calmly walked to the microphone and announced the wedding was canceled, sent him into a panic that revealed his true character and taught me the most valuable lesson about self-worth I had ever learned. This is the story of how one moment of public humiliation became the catalyst for the most empowering decision of my life. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Elena Martinez, and for 28 years I had built my identity around being the kind of woman who believed that love could conquer all obstacles, that patience and understanding could transform any relationship challenge, and that true partnership meant supporting each other through whatever difficulties life presented. These beliefs had guided every romantic decision I had made since college, and they had shaped my approach to the relationship that I thought would culminate in the marriage I had dreamed of since childhood. The foundation of my relationship philosophy had been established during my upbringing in a modest household in Phoenix, Arizona, where my mother, Carmen, had worked as a high school English teacher, while my father, Roberto, managed a small auto repair shop that barely provided enough income to support our family of 5. Money had always been tight, but love had never been scarce in our household, and I had learned early that genuine affection, mutual respect, and shared values mattered infinitely more than material possessions or financial security. My parents had demonstrated through 32 years of marriage that authentic partnership meant celebrating each other's successes, supporting each other through setbacks, and maintaining unwavering loyalty even when external circumstances created stress or uncertainty. They had shown me that real love meant choosing each other repeatedly, even when that choice required sacrifice, compromise, or the courage to face challenges together rather than seeking easier alternatives. This foundation had sustained me through the financial struggles of completing my degree in graphic design at Arizona State University, where I had worked multiple part-time jobs to graduate without the crushing student debt that burdened so many of my classmates. I had cleaned office buildings at night, tutored struggling students in mathematics, and designed promotional materials for local businesses, always maintaining focus on the long-term goal of building a career that would provide both creative fulfillment and financial stability. After graduation, I had moved to Denver, Colorado, where the growing technology sector offered opportunities for graphic designers who could adapt traditional design principles to digital platforms and emerging marketing channels. The city represented everything I found exciting about building an independent adult life: cultural diversity, professional opportunities, outdoor recreation possibilities, and the kind of vibrant social environment where meaningful relationships could develop naturally through shared interests and complementary values. My career had progressed steadily through positions at progressively larger marketing agencies, where I had developed expertise in brand development, digital marketing campaigns, and client relationship management that made me increasingly valuable to employers who recognized my ability to combine creative vision with practical business understanding. Within 5 years, I had been promoted to Senior Creative Director at Morrison Creative Solutions, earning a salary that provided comfortable living while allowing me to save for future goals and maintain the financial independence that I considered essential for personal security and self-respect. The professional success had been deeply satisfying, but it had not filled the emotional void that remained unfulfilled, despite career advancement, financial stability, and the kind of lifestyle that many people my age envied. I had dated consistently throughout my 20s, maintaining relationships that ranged from casual companionship to serious partnerships that lasted several months. But none had developed into the kind of deep emotional connection that I recognized as foundational for lasting marriage and family building. My approach to romantic relationships had always been characterized by the same patience and strategic thinking that had enabled professional success. I refused to settle for partnerships that lacked intellectual compatibility, emotional intimacy, or shared vision for future development. I had ended several relationships with men who possessed attractive qualities but demonstrated fundamental incompatibilities in values, life goals, or approaches to conflict resolution that would have created ongoing tension and disappointment. The loneliness that sometimes accompanied this selective approach had been challenging, particularly during holiday seasons and family gatherings, where my single status became the subject of well-meaning but intrusive questions from relatives who could not understand why someone with my education, career success, and pleasant personality remained unmarried approaching 30. These conversations had tested my confidence in my standards and decision-making, but they had never convinced me to compromise on the qualities I considered essential for authentic partnership. When I met Alexander Whitfield at a networking event for marketing professionals in downtown Denver, the connection had been immediate and multifaceted in ways that distinguished it from every previous romantic encounter. Alexander possessed the kind of effortless charm and intellectual sophistication that made conversation feel natural and engaging. But more importantly, he demonstrated genuine interest in my thoughts, opinions, and professional experiences, rather than treating our interaction as an opportunity to impress me with his accomplishments or social status. Alexander worked as a financial advisor for high-net-worth clients at Pinnacle Wealth Management, a position that required the combination of analytical skills, interpersonal competence, and ethical judgment that I found intellectually attractive in potential partners. His educational background included a Master of Business Administration from the University of Colorado and certification as a Chartered Financial Analyst, credentials that reflected the kind of commitment to professional excellence that aligned with my own career values and long-term aspirations. More significantly, Alexander appeared to share my belief that successful relationships required mutual respect, open communication, and partnership approaches to decision-making that honored both individual autonomy and collective goals. During our early conversations, he spoke thoughtfully about the importance of finding someone who could be both romantic partner and intellectual equal, someone who brought complementary strengths to the relationship while maintaining independent identity and personal growth trajectory. Our first official date had taken place at a small Italian restaurant in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, where we had talked for nearly 4 hours about everything from career aspirations to family relationships, to political perspectives, to travel experiences that had shaped our worldviews. The conversation had flowed with the kind of natural ease that suggested deep compatibility, and I had left that evening feeling more optimistic about romantic possibilities than I had experienced in several years. The relationship had developed slowly and deliberately over the following 6 months, with Alexander demonstrating consistent reliability, emotional availability, and genuine interest in building something meaningful, rather than pursuing casual companionship or temporary entertainment. He remembered details from our conversations, made thoughtful gestures that reflected attention to my preferences and interests, and gradually introduced me to his social circle in ways that suggested serious intentions rather than superficial dating behavior. Alexander's friends and colleagues had welcomed me warmly, treating me as a valued addition to their social group rather than temporary romantic entertainment for someone they expected would move on to other relationships within a few months. His closest friend, Marcus Chen, had confided during a group dinner that Alexander spoke about me differently than he had discussed previous girlfriends, with the kind of long-term planning and emotional investment that suggested genuine commitment to building a future together. The financial aspects of our relationship had been handled with the kind of thoughtful balance that reflected mutual respect and practical wisdom about money management in serious partnerships. Alexander earned significantly more than I did in his financial advisory role, but he had never made me feel uncomfortable about income disparities, or pressured to accept financial support that would have compromised my independence, or created unhealthy power dynamics between us. When we dined at expensive restaurants, Alexander typically paid without making a dramatic gesture, or expecting effusive gratitude for his generosity. When we traveled together, he covered transportation and accommodation costs, while I contributed to meals and activities in proportions that felt comfortable and sustainable for both of us. When gift-giving occasions arose, his choices reflected thoughtfulness and attention to my interests, rather than expensive displays designed to impress me or demonstrate his financial capabilities. This approach to money had been one of the qualities I found most attractive about Alexander, because it demonstrated the kind of maturity and emotional intelligence that I considered essential for successful long-term partnership. He understood that healthy relationships required balance, reciprocity, and mutual contribution, rather than transactional arrangements where financial resources created obligations or power imbalances that undermined genuine affection and respect. My family had embraced Alexander enthusiastically during his first visit to Phoenix, where he had demonstrated genuine interest in my parents' stories, asked thoughtful questions about their experiences immigrating from Mexico, and participated naturally in family traditions and conversations, without the awkwardness that sometimes characterized interactions between people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. My mother had commented privately that Alexander treated me with the kind of respect and affection that she had always hoped I would find in a serious partner. The engagement had come 15 months into our relationship, during a weekend trip to Aspen where Alexander had planned a romantic dinner at a mountain resort, followed by a private moment on a scenic overlook, where he had proposed with a beautiful but reasonably sized diamond ring that reflected both his affection and his understanding of my preferences for meaningful gestures, rather than ostentatious displays of wealth. The proposal had been everything I had hoped for: intimate, thoughtful, and clearly planned with careful attention to creating a memorable experience that honored our relationship, rather than showcasing his financial resources or social status. When he had knelt down and asked me to marry him, his words had focused on his love for me, his excitement about building a life together, and his commitment to supporting my dreams while pursuing shared goals that would benefit both of us. The engagement period had been filled with the kind of collaborative wedding planning that reinforced my confidence in our partnership compatibility. Alexander had participated actively in decisions about venues, menus, music, and guest lists, demonstrating flexibility and willingness to compromise when our preferences differed, while maintaining enthusiasm about creating a celebration that would reflect both of our personalities and values. We had chosen a venue that was elegant but not extravagant, planned a menu that would satisfy diverse dietary preferences among our guests, and created an invitation list that included the family members and friends who had been most important in our individual lives and our relationship development. The planning process had been enjoyable rather than stressful, characterized by the kind of easy collaboration that suggested we could handle future challenges with similar cooperation and mutual support. The engagement party had been planned as a celebration with approximately 50 guests, including both of our families, close friends from college and professional circles, and colleagues who had become genuine friends rather than merely workplace acquaintances. Alexander had insisted on hosting the event at an upscale restaurant in downtown Denver, covering all expenses while ensuring that the atmosphere would be sophisticated enough to honor the significance of the occasion while remaining comfortable for guests from various backgrounds and income levels. I had approached the engagement party with genuine excitement and anticipation, viewing it as an opportunity to celebrate our commitment with the people who mattered most to us, while officially beginning the transition from dating couple to engaged partners preparing for marriage. The evening represented everything I had hoped for in terms of family acceptance, friend approval, and public recognition of the relationship that had become the foundation for my future happiness and security. The dress I had chosen for the engagement party was a navy blue cocktail dress that struck the perfect balance between elegance and accessibility, sophisticated enough for the upscale venue while remaining modest enough to feel comfortable around family members and conservative relatives. I had spent considerable time selecting jewelry that would complement the dress while honoring the engagement ring that symbolized Alexander's commitment and my acceptance of his proposal. Standing in front of my bedroom mirror that evening, applying final touches to my makeup and adjusting the necklace that had been my grandmother's engagement gift, I had felt the kind of deep contentment and optimistic anticipation that comes from knowing that important life goals are finally being achieved through patience, good judgment, and the courage to maintain high standards despite social pressure to settle for less than authentic partnership. The foundation I had built over 28 years of life experience, professional development, and relationship learning had prepared me for this moment when commitment and celebration would mark the beginning of the next chapter in my personal development and romantic fulfillment. I had every reason to believe that the evening would be a joyful beginning to the marriage planning process that would culminate in the wedding I had envisioned since childhood. However, as I prepared to leave for the engagement party that would change everything, I could not have anticipated that the foundation of trust, respect, and mutual support that I thought Alexander and I had built together was about to be tested in ways that would reveal fundamental incompatibilities and character flaws that had been carefully concealed throughout our relationship development. The evening that was supposed to celebrate our future together would instead become the catalyst for the most important lesson about self-worth and personal boundaries that I would ever learn. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Alexander Whitfield had entered my life with the kind of polished confidence and sophisticated charm that immediately distinguished him from every other man I had encountered in my professional and social circles throughout Denver's competitive dating landscape. His presence commanded attention without demanding it. His conversation revealed intelligence without condescension, and his approach to relationship building demonstrated the kind of emotional maturity that suggested genuine readiness for serious partnership rather than casual romantic entertainment. From our initial meeting at the Marketing Professionals Networking event, Alexander had exhibited qualities that aligned perfectly with the standards I had developed through years of observing successful relationships and learning from disappointing romantic experiences that had taught me to recognize authenticity versus performance in potential partners. His questions during our first conversation had focused on understanding my thoughts, experiences, and aspirations, rather than showcasing his own accomplishments or attempting to impress me with superficial displays of wealth, intelligence, or social status. The financial advisory industry had shaped Alexander's professional persona in ways that proved attractive to someone who valued competence, reliability, and ethical judgment in personal relationships. His work required managing substantial assets for clients who trusted him with their retirement security, estate planning, and wealth preservation strategies. Responsibilities that demanded the kind of integrity and long-term thinking that I found essential in romantic partners who would eventually influence major life decisions and financial planning for shared futures. Alexander's educational background reflected the kind of intellectual curiosity and commitment to professional development that suggested compatibility with my own career ambitions and personal growth priorities. His Master of Business Administration from the University of Colorado had been earned while working full-time at a smaller financial services firm, demonstrating the discipline and time management skills that I respected in individuals who pursued advancement through effort, rather than relying on family connections or inherited advantages to achieve professional success. The Chartered Financial Analyst certification that Alexander had completed represented thousands of hours of studying complex financial theories, regulatory requirements, and ethical standards that governed professional conduct in his industry. This achievement particularly impressed me because it demonstrated willingness to invest significant personal time and energy in developing expertise that would benefit clients, rather than simply pursuing credentials that would enhance earning potential or social status without corresponding competence improvements. During our early relationship development, Alexander had consistently demonstrated the kind of thoughtful attention to detail and genuine interest in my well-being that distinguished serious romantic interest from casual dating behavior. He remembered preferences I had mentioned during conversations weeks earlier, planned activities that reflected understanding of my interests rather than simply choosing venues or experiences that he personally enjoyed, and asked follow-up questions about work challenges, family relationships, and personal goals that showed sustained engagement with my life beyond our romantic interactions. The integration of our social circles had proceeded naturally and comfortably, with Alexander introducing me to his friends and colleagues in ways that suggested long-term intentions rather than temporary companionship. His closest friend, Marcus Chen, had become someone I genuinely enjoyed spending time with during group activities, and his girlfriend Sarah had developed into a friendship that extended beyond our connections to the men who had brought us together initially. Alexander's approach to group dynamics revealed character traits that reinforced my confidence in his suitability as a long-term partner. He participated in conversations without dominating them, showed interest in other people's experiences and opinions without feeling compelled to demonstrate superior knowledge or experience, and contributed to group expenses and planning responsibilities in ways that reflected consideration for others rather than self-centered convenience or financial manipulation. The professional respect that Alexander had earned from colleagues and clients became evident through interactions I observed at industry events, social gatherings with his coworkers, and casual mentions of his reputation among peers in Denver's financial services community. Senior executives at Pinnacle Wealth Management clearly valued his contributions and judgment, often seeking his input on complex client situations, and including him in strategic planning discussions that involved professionals with significantly more experience in the industry. Client testimonials and referrals provided additional evidence of Alexander's competence and ethical conduct in professional relationships. Several clients had specifically requested that their family members work with Alexander when they needed financial advisory services, suggesting the kind of trust and satisfaction that develops only when professionals consistently deliver results, while maintaining transparency and honest communication about risks, opportunities, and realistic expectations for investment performance. The volunteer work that Alexander pursued through his church and professional organizations revealed additional dimensions of his character, that strengthened my confidence in his values and priorities. He donated time to financial literacy programs for young adults aging out of foster care, helped small business owners develop budgeting and cash flow management systems, and participated in community development initiatives that provided pro bono financial planning services for families facing economic hardship. These activities particularly impressed me because they demonstrated genuine commitment to using his professional skills for social benefit rather than simply participating in volunteer activities for networking advantages or resume enhancement. Alexander's approach to community service reflected the same thoughtfulness and competence that characterized his professional work, suggesting authentic concern for others rather than strategic relationship building or reputation management. The religious faith that provided foundation for Alexander's ethical framework had been presented as personal conviction, rather than rigid dogma that would require my conversion or conformity to belief systems that conflicted with my own spiritual development. He attended services regularly at a progressive Episcopal church that emphasized social justice, community service, and intellectual engagement with theological questions rather than literal interpretation of Scripture or judgmental attitudes toward people with different religious backgrounds. Alexander's family relationships provided additional insight into his character and values through interactions with parents, siblings, and extended relatives who treated me with warmth and acceptance from our first meeting. His parents, Margaret and James Whitfield, had built a successful consulting business that specialized in organizational development for healthcare systems, achieving financial security through professional competence and ethical business practices, rather than inherited wealth or political connections. The Whitfield family dynamics reflected the kind of mutual respect, open communication, and supportive relationships that I found encouraging for long-term partnership prospects. Alexander's interactions with his younger sister demonstrated protective affection without controlling behavior. His conversations with his parents showed appreciation for their guidance while maintaining adult independence, and his relationships with extended family members suggested loyalty and commitment to maintaining connections across generations and geographic distances. When Alexander had met my family during our trip to Phoenix, his behavior had exceeded every expectation I had developed for how potential partners should interact with people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. He had shown genuine interest in my parents' immigration story, asked thoughtful questions about my father's auto repair business without condescension or superficial curiosity, and participated naturally in family conversations and traditions without the awkwardness that sometimes characterized interactions between people from different economic circumstances. My mother's immediate approval of Alexander had been particularly meaningful because she had maintained skeptical attitudes towards several previous boyfriends who had failed to demonstrate the kind of respect and authentic interest that she considered essential for serious relationships. Her observation that Alexander treated me with the kind of affection and consideration that she had always hoped I would find in a romantic partner carried significant weight in my evaluation of our relationship potential. The gift-giving occasions that had occurred throughout our relationship had been handled with the kind of thoughtfulness and appropriateness that reflected understanding of my values and preferences, rather than attempts to impress me with expensive displays or create obligations through disproportionate generosity. Alexander's choices consistently demonstrated attention to my interests, hobbies, and aesthetic preferences, while remaining within ranges that felt comfortable and sustainable for ongoing relationship development. For my birthday, Alexander had commissioned a local artist to create a custom piece that incorporated elements from several of my graphic design projects, demonstrating both understanding of my professional passion and appreciation for the creative work that provided meaning beyond financial compensation. The gift had been personal and meaningful without being extravagant, reflecting the kind of emotional intelligence and consideration that I found attractive in potential long-term partners. The Christmas gifts that Alexander had selected for my family members had shown remarkable insight into their personalities and interests, despite limited interaction time. He had chosen books related to automotive restoration for my father, gardening supplies for my mother's herb garden, and educational toys for my young nephew that reflected attention to conversations about their hobbies and interests, rather than generic gift selection based on demographic assumptions. Alexander's approach to financial planning for our shared future had been characterized by transparency, collaboration, and mutual respect for individual autonomy, while acknowledging the practical realities of combining resources and coordinating long-term goals. He had shared information about his income, savings, and debt obligations without making me feel pressured to provide reciprocal financial disclosures before I felt comfortable doing so, demonstrating the kind of emotional maturity that suggested readiness for authentic partnership. The conversations we had conducted about money management, career aspirations, and lifestyle preferences had revealed compatible approaches to balancing current enjoyment with future security, while maintaining individual identity and personal goals within the context of shared planning. Alexander had expressed enthusiasm for supporting my entrepreneurial ambitions to eventually start my own design consultancy, while pursuing his own professional advancement within the financial services industry. When the opportunity had arisen for Alexander to join a larger wealth management firm that would have required relocating to Seattle, he had discussed the possibility with me extensively before declining the position, explaining that our relationship had become more important to him than career advancement that would require geographic separation during the critical period when we were building foundation for marriage and family planning. This decision had been particularly meaningful because it demonstrated prioritization of our relationship over individual career opportunities that could have provided significant financial benefits and professional advancement. Alexander's willingness to consider my preferences and our shared goals when evaluating major career decisions suggested the kind of partnership approach that I considered essential for successful marriage and long-term relationship satisfaction. The proposal planning that Alexander had undertaken for our Aspen weekend had reflected the same thoughtfulness and attention to detail that characterized every aspect of our relationship development. He had researched venues, made reservations, and coordinated logistics while maintaining the surprise elements that would make the experience memorable and romantic, without creating stress or unrealistic expectations that might diminish the emotional significance of the moment. The engagement ring selection process had involved subtle information gathering about my preferences through conversations with my close friends, and careful observation of jewelry styles I had admired during shopping trips or social events. The final choice had been perfect in terms of size, setting, and overall aesthetic appeal, while remaining within reasonable financial parameters that suggested thoughtful planning rather than impulsive extravagance designed to compensate for relationship deficiencies. Alexander's enthusiasm about wedding planning had provided additional evidence of his genuine commitment to building a life together, rather than simply fulfilling social expectations or achieving relationship milestones that would enhance his personal status or social standing. His participation in venue selection, menu planning, and guest list development had been active and collaborative, demonstrating investment in creating a celebration that would reflect both of our personalities and values. The engagement party planning had been entirely Alexander's initiative, proposed as an opportunity to celebrate our commitment with the family members and friends who had been most supportive of our relationship development, while officially announcing our intention to marry within the following year. His insistence on hosting the event at an upscale restaurant had been presented as a way to honor the significance of the occasion, while ensuring that all guests would be comfortable regardless of their economic circumstances or familiarity with formal social events. Alexander's excitement about introducing me as his fiancée to extended family members, professional colleagues, and social acquaintances who had not yet met me had seemed genuine and enthusiastic rather than obligatory or strategic. He had spoken frequently about looking forward to the evening when we could publicly celebrate our commitment and share our happiness with the people who mattered most to both of us individually and as a couple. The trust I had developed in Alexander's character, judgment, and commitment to our relationship had become the foundation for every major decision I was making about my personal and professional future. His opinion influenced my career planning, his preferences affected my lifestyle choices, and his support enabled confidence in pursuing goals that would have seemed more challenging or risky, without the security of knowing that someone believed in my capabilities and would provide emotional and practical assistance when difficulties arose. The emotional intimacy that had developed between us had created the kind of vulnerability and mutual dependence that made genuine partnership possible, while maintaining individual identity and personal growth opportunities. Alexander had become the person I consulted about major decisions, the confidant who understood my insecurities and aspirations, and the supporter who celebrated my successes while providing comfort and encouragement during setbacks or disappointments. As I prepared for the engagement party that was intended to celebrate the foundation we had built together, I possessed complete confidence in Alexander's love, respect, and commitment to protecting and nurturing our relationship through whatever challenges future life might present. The trust I had placed in his character and judgment would soon be tested in ways that would reveal fundamental aspects of his personality that had been carefully concealed throughout our relationship development. The evening that was supposed to mark the beginning of our marriage planning would instead become the catalyst for the most painful but ultimately liberating discovery about the difference between authentic partnership and sophisticated manipulation designed to achieve personal goals at the expense of genuine emotional connection and mutual respect. The 3 months preceding our engagement party had been characterized by a convergence of circumstances that created ideal conditions for what I believed would be the most joyful celebration of my adult life, but which would ultimately become the setting for revelations that would fundamentally alter my understanding of love, trust, and the courage required to maintain personal dignity when faced with devastating betrayal. Morrison Creative Solutions had been experiencing unprecedented growth throughout the previous quarter, with client acquisitions exceeding projections by nearly 40%, and creative campaigns generating industry recognition that attracted attention from national brands seeking innovative marketing approaches. My role as Senior Creative Director had expanded significantly during this period, encompassing strategic consulting responsibilities that positioned me as a key decision-maker in account management and business development initiatives that would determine the agency's competitive positioning for years to come. The professional recognition I was receiving had created opportunities for advancement that exceeded my most optimistic career projections when I had first moved to Denver 5 years earlier. Marketing industry publications had featured my work in articles about emerging trends in digital branding, and speaking invitations from professional conferences suggested that my expertise was gaining recognition beyond the local market, where I had initially established my reputation through consistent client satisfaction and innovative campaign development. This career momentum had provided exceptional validation for the strategic decisions I had made about professional development, continuing education investments, and the calculated risks I had taken in pursuing challenging projects that stretched my capabilities while building portfolio examples that distinguished my work from conventional marketing approaches. The success felt particularly meaningful because it had been achieved through competence and creativity, rather than political maneuvering or personal connections that might have accelerated advancement without corresponding skill development. The timing of this professional peak coincided perfectly with the engagement celebration that would publicly acknowledge the personal happiness I had found with Alexander, creating a period in my life when every major goal seemed to be achieving fruition simultaneously. The combination of career success and romantic fulfillment represented the realization of the comprehensive life plan I had developed throughout my 20s, when balancing professional ambition with personal relationship goals had required careful prioritization and strategic decision-making. Alexander's financial advisory practice had also been experiencing remarkable growth during this period, with client referrals and asset management responsibilities reaching levels that qualified him for partnership consideration at Pinnacle Wealth Management within the following fiscal year. His professional success had been gratifying to witness because it validated my assessment of his competence and work ethic, while providing additional security for the financial planning we were conducting as an engaged couple preparing for marriage and potential family development. The partnership opportunity represented more than professional advancement for Alexander, as it would provide equity participation in the firm's profits and long-term growth, while positioning him among the senior leadership team that would guide strategic planning and operational decisions. This achievement would establish him as one of the youngest partners in the firm's history, recognition that reflected both his client relationship management skills and his ability to generate revenue through effective investment strategies and comprehensive financial planning services. The real estate market conditions in Denver had created an exceptional opportunity for purchasing our first home together. With interest rates remaining historically low, while property values in desirable neighborhoods had not yet reached the inflated levels that would make homeownership prohibitively expensive for professional couples with solid but not extraordinary incomes. We had been actively searching for properties that would accommodate both current needs and future expansion plans that included children and home office spaces for our respective professional activities. The house hunting process had been enjoyable and collaborative, revealing compatible preferences for architectural styles, neighborhood characteristics, and financial parameters that suggested strong alignment in lifestyle priorities and long-term planning approaches. Alexander's analytical skills had been particularly valuable during property evaluations, as his experience with investment analysis enabled comprehensive assessment of market trends, appreciation potential, and renovation costs that might affect total ownership expenses over time. The wedding planning activities had been proceeding smoothly with venue bookings, vendor selections, and guest list preparations that reflected our shared vision for an elegant but accessible celebration that would honor both families while creating memorable experiences for friends who had supported our relationship development. The collaborative nature of these planning sessions had reinforced my confidence in our partnership compatibility, as we had navigated potentially stressful decisions with mutual respect and compromise when our preferences differed. Alexander's family had been actively involved in wedding preparations, with his mother, Margaret, providing valuable assistance with vendor recommendations based on previous experience planning events for their consulting business clients. Her enthusiasm about welcoming me into their family had been particularly meaningful, as she had made genuine efforts to understand my cultural background and incorporate traditions that would honor my heritage, while respecting the Episcopal ceremony format that reflected Alexander's religious preferences. My own family had been equally supportive and excited about the upcoming wedding, with my parents already making travel arrangements and coordinating with extended relatives who would be attending the ceremony from various locations throughout the Southwest. The financial assistance they had offered for wedding expenses despite their modest retirement income demonstrated the importance they placed on celebrating this milestone and ensuring that the celebration would meet their expectations for their daughter's marriage. The engagement party guest list had evolved organically to include approximately 50 people who represented the most significant relationships in both of our lives, creating an intimate but substantial gathering that would provide opportunity for meaningful interactions between family members and friends from different periods of our personal development. The careful balance between Alexander's professional colleagues, college friends, and family members with my own social and professional connections had required considerable coordination to ensure that every guest would feel comfortable and included in the celebration. Alexander's insistence on hosting the engagement party at Meridian, one of Denver's most prestigious restaurants, had initially concerned me due to the expense involved and the formal atmosphere that might intimidate some of our more casual friends or family members, with limited experience in upscale dining environments. However, his enthusiasm about creating a memorable celebration and his assurance that the venue's private dining room would provide intimate atmosphere despite the elegant setting had convinced me that his intentions were focused on honoring our relationship rather than displaying wealth or social status. The menu selection process had involved multiple tastings and consultations with the restaurant's event coordinator, resulting in choices that would accommodate various dietary restrictions and cultural preferences among our guests, while maintaining the sophisticated presentation that Alexander believed appropriate for such a significant occasion. His attention to these details had seemed thoughtful and considerate, suggesting genuine concern for guest comfort rather than superficial emphasis on impressive presentation. The invitation design and printing had been handled through my professional contacts in the graphic design industry, creating elegant announcements that reflected my aesthetic sensibilities while incorporating classic elements that would appeal to both families and diverse friend groups. The collaborative approach to these decisions had reinforced my appreciation for Alexander's willingness to defer to my expertise in areas where my professional background provided superior judgment and creative vision. Wedding dress shopping had begun during this period, with my mother, future mother-in-law, and closest female friends participating in appointments at bridal boutiques throughout the Denver metropolitan area. The process had been emotionally meaningful as well as practically necessary, as finding the perfect dress represented the culmination of childhood dreams and adult expectations for the most important day of my life. Alexander's interest in these activities, despite the traditional prohibition against grooms seeing wedding dresses before the ceremony, had demonstrated his genuine investment in every aspect of our wedding planning. The honeymoon planning had been entirely Alexander's responsibility, as he had insisted on surprising me with destination and activity selections that would reflect his understanding of my travel preferences, while introducing experiences that might expand our shared interests and create lasting memories. His mysterious references to tropical locations and cultural attractions had generated excitement and anticipation that added romantic elements to the practical wedding planning activities that consumed most of our discretionary time during this period. Professional obligations for both of us had intensified during the engagement period, with client deadlines and project deliverables requiring extended hours and weekend work that sometimes interfered with wedding planning activities and social commitments with friends and family. However, we had managed these competing demands through careful scheduling and mutual support that enabled both career advancement and relationship prioritization without compromising either professional responsibilities or personal relationship development. The premarital counseling sessions that Alexander had suggested through his church had provided valuable opportunities for discussing potential challenges and ensuring that our expectations for marriage were compatible and realistic. Pastor Williams had guided conversations about financial management, conflict resolution, family planning, and career coordination that had revealed strong alignment in values and approaches, while identifying areas where ongoing communication would be essential for maintaining partnership satisfaction. These counseling sessions had been particularly meaningful because they demonstrated Alexander's commitment to building a strong foundation for marriage rather than simply planning an impressive wedding celebration. His willingness to invest time in these discussions and his thoughtful responses to challenging questions about commitment, fidelity, and mutual support had reinforced my confidence that he possessed the emotional maturity and ethical grounding necessary for successful long-term partnership. The bachelor and bachelorette party planning had been coordinated between our respective friend groups, with Marcus Chen organizing a weekend skiing trip to Vail for Alexander and his college friends, while my closest girlfriends had arranged a spa weekend in Scottsdale that would provide relaxation and celebration before the intensive final month of wedding preparations. These separate celebrations represented healthy recognition of individual friendships and interests that would continue to be important even within the context of married life. The gift registry process had been handled collaboratively, with selections that reflected our shared aesthetic preferences and practical needs for establishing a household that would accommodate both of our lifestyle requirements and entertaining preferences. Alexander's enthusiasm for registering for high-quality items that would last for decades rather than choosing less expensive options that might require replacement within a few years had aligned with my own philosophy about investing in possessions that would provide long-term satisfaction and functionality. The financial planning for wedding expenses had been managed through careful budgeting that balanced our desire for an elegant celebration with responsible spending that would not compromise our ability to purchase a home or maintain emergency savings that provided security during the early years of marriage. Alexander's professional expertise in financial planning had been invaluable during these decisions, as he had been able to project long-term implications of various expense levels while ensuring that our celebration would meet emotional and social expectations. As the engagement party date approached, every element of preparation had been completed successfully, creating anticipation for an evening that would mark the official transition from private engagement to public celebration of our commitment, while providing opportunity for important people in our lives to share in our happiness and offer support for the marriage we were planning. The convergence of professional success, family approval, friend enthusiasm, and personal contentment had created perfect conditions for the kind of joyful celebration that validates life choices and provides foundation for optimistic future planning. However, beneath the surface of these positive circumstances, subtle tensions and personality revelations had been accumulating that would soon transform celebration into crisis and force me to confront fundamental questions about Alexander's character, motivations, and genuine commitment to the values that I believed we shared. The perfect storm was gathering strength, and the evening that was supposed to mark the beginning of our marriage planning would instead become the catalyst for the most important lesson about self-worth and personal boundaries that I would ever learn. The week leading up to our engagement party had been marked by subtle shifts in Alexander's behavior and communication patterns that, in retrospect, provided clear indicators of the character revelations that would soon devastate my understanding of our relationship. These changes had been gradual enough to avoid triggering immediate alarm, yet significant enough to create an underlying sense of unease that I attributed to normal pre-celebration anxiety, rather than fundamental problems with his commitment or respect for our partnership. Alexander's conversations with his professional colleagues had begun including references to financial planning strategies and wealth management approaches that seemed inconsistent with the collaborative decision-making processes we had established for our shared future. During a dinner with Marcus Chen and several other financial advisors from Pinnacle Wealth Management, I had overheard discussions about client relationships, marriage planning, and asset protection that suggested perspectives on partnership that differed significantly from the values-based approach we had supposedly agreed upon for our own relationship development. The specific comments that had caught my attention involved detailed analysis of prenuptial agreements, spousal financial obligations, and strategic approaches to maintaining individual wealth accumulation even within marriage partnerships. While these topics represented legitimate professional considerations for financial advisors serving high-net-worth clients, the enthusiasm and personal investment Alexander displayed during these conversations suggested that he was applying similar analytical frameworks to our own relationship dynamics, rather than viewing our engagement as the emotional and spiritual commitment we had discussed extensively during our relationship development. When I had attempted to engage Alexander in follow-up conversations about these discussions, his responses had been dismissive and deflective, suggesting that professional obligations required him to understand complex financial planning strategies that might not apply to our personal situation, but were essential for providing comprehensive advisory services to clients with diverse needs and circumstances. His explanations had been technically accurate, but emotionally unsatisfying, creating distance between us during a period when increased intimacy and shared planning should have been strengthening our connection and mutual understanding. The guest list management for our engagement party had revealed unexpected priorities and social dynamics that contradicted the inclusive, family-centered celebration we had initially planned together. Alexander had become increasingly concerned with ensuring that certain professional colleagues and social acquaintances would attend the event, even when their inclusion required reducing the number of family members or close friends who could be accommodated within the restaurant's capacity limitations and our agreed-upon budget parameters. The specific individuals whose attendance had become disproportionately important to Alexander included senior partners from Pinnacle Wealth Management, clients who had expressed interest in Alexander's career development, and social connections from the exclusive country club where he had recently obtained membership despite my stated preference for allocating those financial resources toward our shared savings goals for homeownership and emergency fund development. When I had questioned the reasoning behind prioritizing professional networking opportunities over meaningful personal relationships during what should have been an intimate celebration of our commitment, Alexander's justifications had focused on career advancement benefits and long-term financial security, rather than the emotional significance of sharing our happiness with people who had supported our relationship development. His explanation that strategic relationship building was essential for achieving the lifestyle goals we had discussed felt transactional and manipulative, compared to the authentic partnership approach we had supposedly agreed upon. The venue selection process had revealed additional concerning priorities when Alexander had insisted on upgrading various elements of the celebration despite our established budget guidelines, and my expressed preferences for more modest accommodations that would allow greater focus on meaningful interactions rather than impressive presentations. The specific upgrades he had requested included premium wine selections, elaborate floral arrangements, and enhanced audio-visual equipment that seemed designed to create maximum impact on attending professionals rather than provide optimal comfort for diverse family and friend groups. Alexander's explanations for these modifications had emphasized the importance of making positive impressions on career-significant attendees, while ensuring that the celebration would reflect appropriate appreciation for their willingness to participate in our personal milestone. However, his reasoning suggested that he viewed our engagement party as a professional networking opportunity rather than a personal celebration, fundamentally misunderstanding the purpose and emotional significance of the event we were planning together. The financial discussions that had accompanied these venue modifications had revealed perspectives on money management and relationship economics that contradicted the collaborative approach Alexander had previously demonstrated during our shared planning activities. His willingness to exceed our agreed-upon budget parameters for elements that would impress professional contacts, while maintaining strict limitations on expenses that would enhance comfort for family members, suggested priorities that favored career advancement over personal relationship maintenance. When I had expressed concerns about these budget modifications and their implications for our broader financial planning goals, Alexander's responses had become increasingly defensive and dismissive, suggesting that my perspective reflected limited understanding of professional relationship requirements and long-term strategic thinking necessary for achieving significant career advancement in competitive industries. His condescending explanations felt fundamentally different from the respectful, collaborative communication patterns we had established throughout our relationship development. The pre-party shopping activities had provided additional opportunities to observe Alexander's behavior and priorities under circumstances that revealed character traits I had not previously recognized or acknowledged. During our joint selection of attire for the engagement celebration, Alexander's focus had been primarily on ensuring that our appearance would create appropriate impressions on professional contacts, rather than expressing our personal style preferences or cultural heritage elements that had previously been important considerations in our relationship development. The specific wardrobe recommendations Alexander had made included suggestions that I modify my typical professional appearance to align more closely with the aesthetic preferences of wealthy clients and senior executives who would be evaluating our relationship dynamic during the celebration. His comments about jewelry selection, hairstyle preferences, and makeup approaches suggested that he viewed my appearance as a reflection of his professional competence and social status, rather than an expression of my individual personality and cultural background. When I had resisted some of these appearance modification suggestions, Alexander's responses had revealed impatience and frustration that seemed disproportionate to the significance of stylistic preferences for a single social event. His insistence that certain appearance choices would create negative impressions on important professional contacts suggested that he was more concerned with external validation than authentic self-expression, a fundamental shift from the values-based approach to decision-making we had supposedly shared throughout our relationship. The conversations Alexander had been conducting with his male friends and professional colleagues had begun, including language and perspectives about marriage, partnership, and gender roles that contradicted the egalitarian relationship philosophy we had discussed extensively during our engagement planning. These conversations, which I had overheard during social gatherings and professional events, included references to traditional marriage structures, financial dependency dynamics, and spousal role expectations that seemed inconsistent with his stated support for my career ambitions and independent professional development. The specific comments that had concerned me involved discussions about the advantages of marriage for professional men, the importance of selecting partners who would enhance rather than complicate career advancement efforts, and strategic approaches to managing spousal expectations during periods of intensive professional focus. While these conversations might have been intended as general social commentary rather than personal relationship planning, the enthusiasm and agreement Alexander displayed during these discussions suggested perspectives on marriage that differed significantly from our supposed shared commitment to mutual support and collaborative decision-making. Alexander's interactions with my professional colleagues and creative industry contacts had begun reflecting subtle condescension and dismissiveness that contrasted sharply with the respect and interest he had previously demonstrated for my career achievements and artistic capabilities. During recent social events where both of our professional circles had interacted, Alexander's conversations with marketing professionals, graphic designers, and creative directors had included comments that minimized the significance of creative work compared to financial services, suggested that artistic careers were inherently less stable than analytical professions, and implied that creative professionals were less sophisticated about business strategy and long-term planning. These interactions had been particularly troubling because they revealed perspectives on my professional identity and career value that contradicted the enthusiastic support Alexander had previously expressed for my work and advancement goals. His apparent belief that creative professions were somehow inferior to financial services suggested fundamental disrespect for the skills, education, and professional competence that had enabled my career success and would continue to provide important contributions to our shared financial security and lifestyle goals. The family interaction dynamics during recent gatherings had also begun revealing concerning patterns in Alexander's behavior toward my parents and extended relatives. While his initial interactions with my family had been characterized by genuine interest and respectful engagement, more recent conversations had included subtle indications of impatience with cultural differences, limited appreciation for working-class perspectives, and condescending attitudes toward educational and professional backgrounds that differed from his own privileged experiences. The specific incidents that had troubled me included Alexander's responses to my father's stories about his auto repair business, his reactions to my mother's perspectives on education and child-rearing, and his interactions with extended family members who worked in service industries or skilled trades. While Alexander maintained polite behavior during these interactions, his body language, conversation contributions, and follow-up comments to me privately suggested that he viewed my family background as somehow embarrassing or limiting, rather than valuable and meaningful elements of my personal history and cultural identity. The gift selection process for family members and close friends had revealed additional concerning priorities when Alexander had insisted on choosing presents that reflected his financial capabilities rather than thoughtful consideration of recipients' interests, needs, or personal preferences. His approach to gift-giving had become increasingly focused on demonstrating generosity and wealth rather than expressing appreciation and understanding for important relationships in our lives. The specific gifts Alexander had selected included expensive items that recipients might find impractical or inappropriate rather than meaningful presents that reflected genuine attention to their personalities and circumstances. When I had suggested alternative gift options that would be more personally meaningful while remaining within appropriate expense ranges, Alexander's responses had suggested that my recommendations reflected limited understanding of social expectations and professional relationship management requirements. The bachelor party planning activities had provided final opportunities to observe Alexander's behavior and social dynamics within his established friend group, revealing perspectives on relationships, marriage, and gender roles that had been carefully concealed during our private interactions but emerged naturally when he believed himself among like-minded peers who shared similar backgrounds and values. The specific comments and attitudes Alexander had displayed during bachelor party planning conversations included references to marriage as a strategic life decision rather than emotional commitment, discussions about the advantages of selecting partners based on practical considerations rather than romantic attraction, and casual acceptance of double standards regarding behavioral expectations for married men versus married women. These revelations had created accumulating concern about fundamental incompatibilities between Alexander's stated values and his actual beliefs about partnership, respect, and mutual commitment. However, the subtle nature of these warning signs, combined with my emotional investment in our relationship and my desire to believe in the authenticity of our connection, had prevented me from acknowledging the full significance of what I was observing until the evening when his true character would be revealed publicly and undeniably. The perfect storm of circumstances was about to break, and the warning signs I had been noticing would soon be validated in the most devastating and public manner possible, forcing me to confront the reality that the man I had planned to marry possessed character flaws and value systems that were fundamentally incompatible with the respect, partnership, and authentic love that I deserved and required for genuine happiness and personal fulfillment. The morning of our engagement party arrived with the kind of crystalline clarity that makes decisive moments feel inevitable, yet I found myself caught between the accumulated weight of subtle warning signs and my deep emotional investment in the relationship I had believed would provide the foundation for my future happiness and security. The internal conflict between rational analysis and emotional attachment had reached a critical point, where continued avoidance of uncomfortable realities would require willful self-deception that contradicted every principle of honest self-assessment that had guided my personal and professional development throughout my adult life. Standing before my bedroom mirror as I prepared for what should have been one of the most joyful evenings of my life, I confronted the undeniable reality that the man I had agreed to marry possessed character traits and value systems that fundamentally contradicted the respect, partnership, and authentic commitment that I required for genuine relationship satisfaction. The reflection staring back at me revealed someone who had achieved remarkable professional success through competence and integrity, yet who was preparing to celebrate an engagement with someone whose recent behavior suggested superficial values and manipulative intentions that would inevitably create ongoing conflict and disappointment. The decision I faced extended far beyond the immediate question of whether to proceed with the evening's celebration. The accumulated evidence of Alexander's true priorities demanded comprehensive evaluation of our entire relationship foundation, honest assessment of compatibility factors I had previously overlooked or rationalized, and courageous examination of whether continuing toward marriage would represent authentic partnership or comfortable self-betrayal that would undermine my long-term emotional well-being and personal integrity. The professional success I had achieved through strategic decision-making and careful risk assessment provided analytical frameworks that could be applied to relationship evaluation, yet the emotional complexity of romantic attachment created psychological barriers that made objective analysis significantly more challenging than business planning or career advancement decisions. The same competence that had enabled consistent client satisfaction and industry recognition demanded honest acknowledgement that Alexander's recent behavior patterns indicated fundamental incompatibilities that would likely intensify rather than resolve through marriage and shared life building. The financial independence I had cultivated through disciplined saving and strategic career advancement meant that economic security considerations did not complicate my relationship evaluation process. Unlike women whose professional circumstances might make them vulnerable to staying in unsatisfactory relationships due to financial dependence, my established income and accumulated assets provided complete freedom to prioritize emotional compatibility and mutual respect over practical convenience or social expectations about marriage timing and partner selection. This economic autonomy represented years of deliberate choices about lifestyle spending, career prioritization, and personal financial management that had consistently emphasized long-term security over immediate gratification. The discipline required to build substantial savings while maintaining comfortable living standards had prepared me for exactly this type of situation, where personal integrity might require accepting short-term social discomfort and emotional pain in order to protect long-term happiness and authentic relationship satisfaction. The family relationships that had shaped my understanding of healthy partnership dynamics provided clear benchmarks for evaluating whether Alexander's recent behavior aligned with the mutual respect and collaborative decision-making that characterize successful marriages. My parents' 32 years of marriage had demonstrated that authentic love meant consistent consideration for each other's perspectives, genuine appreciation for different strengths and backgrounds, and unwavering commitment to supporting individual growth while building shared goals and experiences. Alexander's condescending attitudes toward my family's working-class background and his dismissive responses to my professional achievements indicated perspectives on partnership that fundamentally contradicted these relationship models. His apparent belief that marriage should enhance his social status rather than provide mutual support and emotional intimacy suggested motivations that would inevitably create ongoing tension and disappointment, as we encountered the normal challenges that require genuine partnership and collaborative problem-solving. The cultural heritage that connected me to generations of strong women who had faced difficult choices with courage and integrity demanded honest evaluation of whether accepting disrespectful treatment would honor or betray the sacrifices my ancestors had made to provide opportunities for their descendants. My grandmother had immigrated to the United States with minimal resources but unwavering determination to build better lives for her children and grandchildren, facing discrimination and economic hardship while maintaining dignity and self-respect that enabled survival and eventual prosperity. The educational opportunities my parents had provided through their own sacrifices and hard work had been intended to ensure that their daughter would possess the knowledge and capabilities necessary to make independent choices based on personal values rather than external limitations or social pressures. Accepting a marriage partnership that required tolerating disrespect would represent fundamental betrayal of their investment and the principles they had taught me about maintaining integrity regardless of circumstances or convenience. The professional recognition I had earned through consistent excellence in creative work represented validation of capabilities and contributions that deserved respect from any serious romantic partner. Alexander's recent comments suggesting that creative careers were somehow inferior to financial services indicated fundamental misunderstanding of the skills, education, and strategic thinking required for success in marketing and graphic design. His apparent belief that analytical professions were inherently more sophisticated than creative work revealed ignorance about the complex problem-solving and strategic planning that characterized effective creative professional practice. The client relationships I had built through innovative campaign development and successful brand strategy implementation had generated revenue and business growth that directly contradicted Alexander's implications about the practical value of creative work. The industry recognition my projects had received through awards, publications, and speaking invitations demonstrated professional competence that merited respect rather than condescension from someone who claimed to love and support my career development. The wedding planning process had revealed concerning priorities that suggested Alexander viewed our marriage as a social and professional enhancement opportunity rather than the beginning of authentic partnership between equals who respected each other's backgrounds, capabilities, and contributions. His insistence on modifying celebration plans to impress professional contacts rather than honor meaningful personal relationships indicated values that prioritized external validation over genuine emotional connection and family commitment. The prenuptial agreement discussions that Alexander had initiated without prior consultation suggested strategic thinking about asset protection that contradicted his stated beliefs about shared goals and collaborative financial planning. While prenuptial agreements could represent responsible financial planning for couples with substantial individual assets, the specific terms Alexander had proposed indicated assumptions about marriage dynamics that fundamentally conflicted with the partnership approach we had supposedly agreed upon during our engagement planning. The social dynamics I had observed during recent interactions with Alexander's professional colleagues and social acquaintances had revealed attitudes about gender roles, marriage expectations, and relationship power structures that seemed inconsistent with his stated support for my career ambitions and independent professional development. His apparent comfort with conversations that minimized women's professional contributions while emphasizing traditional domestic roles suggested perspectives on marriage that would inevitably create conflict as I continued pursuing advancement and recognition in my field. The timeline pressure created by the engagement party schedule and subsequent wedding planning deadlines demanded immediate decision-making about whether to proceed with celebrations that would publicly commit me to a relationship that might represent fundamental compromise of personal values and long-term happiness. The social and financial investments already made in party planning and wedding preparation created additional complexity, yet these practical considerations could not justify proceeding with marriage that would likely produce ongoing disappointment and emotional conflict. The guest list for the evening's celebration included family members and close friends whose opinions and support mattered deeply to me, yet whose presence would make any public confrontation or relationship termination significantly more complex and emotionally challenging. However, the alternative of maintaining artificial harmony, while privately acknowledging fundamental incompatibilities, would represent exactly the kind of self-betrayal that had led to relationship failures throughout my dating history. The professional reputation I had built within Denver's marketing community meant that any public relationship drama would likely become known among colleagues and clients who might question my judgment or stability based on romantic relationship difficulties. However, the same professional success that created these concerns had also established credibility and competence that would survive temporary social awkwardness better than ongoing partnership with someone who did not respect my capabilities and contributions. The emotional investment I had made in envisioning shared future experiences with Alexander represented significant psychological attachment that would require deliberate effort to overcome, regardless of rational analysis about compatibility problems. The dreams we had discussed about travel, home ownership, family development, and collaborative goal achievement had become deeply integrated into my personal planning and identity, making relationship termination feel like abandonment of important life objectives rather than strategic redirection toward more compatible partnership opportunities. The timing of this realization created additional complexity because it coincided with career peak performance and family celebration expectations that had generated momentum toward marriage celebration rather than relationship evaluation. However, the same strategic thinking that had enabled professional advancement demanded honest acknowledgement that timing considerations could not justify proceeding with decisions that contradicted fundamental values and long-term well-being requirements. The courage required to terminate an engagement publicly would represent the most significant test of personal integrity I had ever faced, demanding prioritization of authentic self-respect over social convenience, family expectations, and emotional attachment to relationship outcomes that had become psychologically important, regardless of their practical viability. The decision would require accepting short-term pain and social awkwardness in order to protect long-term happiness and maintain the dignity that my family heritage and professional achievements had established as non-negotiable requirements for authentic relationship satisfaction. As evening approached and preparation activities intensified, the weight of this decision pressed against every comfortable assumption I had made about love, partnership, and the possibility of finding someone who would respect my background, appreciate my achievements, and support my continued growth while building shared experiences based on mutual admiration rather than strategic advantage or social enhancement. The choice I faced would determine whether courage or convenience would guide the most important relationship decision of my adult life. The final hours before departing for our engagement party marked the definitive moment when psychological preparation transformed into irrevocable commitment to action, regardless of the personal cost or social consequences that would inevitably follow. Standing in my apartment, surrounded by the carefully selected outfit and accessories that were intended to present the perfect image of a happy bride-to-be, I acknowledged that the evening ahead would either validate my deepest fears about Alexander's character or provide him with one final opportunity to demonstrate the respect and genuine partnership that our relationship required for authentic success. The decision to proceed with attendance while maintaining complete readiness to respond decisively to any additional evidence of disrespect represented a strategic approach that honored both my emotional investment in the relationship and my unwavering commitment to personal dignity. This balanced positioning would enable me to enter the celebration with genuine openness to positive outcomes, while possessing the psychological preparation necessary to protect my integrity if Alexander's recent behavioral patterns continued or intensified during the public setting. The telephone conversation with my mother that morning had provided essential emotional support, while reinforcing the family values that would guide my responses to whatever developments the evening might bring. Carmen Martinez possessed the kind of intuitive wisdom that comes from observing human nature across decades of teaching adolescents, managing household challenges, and supporting her husband through the various obstacles that immigrant families encounter while building successful lives in communities that do not always welcome cultural differences or economic circumstances. Her gentle inquiry about my emotional state and readiness for the evening's celebration had created an opportunity to share concerns about Alexander's recent behavior, without revealing the full extent of my doubts or the contingency planning I had developed for various scenarios. My mother's response had been characteristically thoughtful and supportive, acknowledging that significant life transitions often create stress that can reveal both strengths and weaknesses in relationships, while emphasizing the importance of maintaining personal standards regardless of external pressures or social expectations. The specific advice she had offered centered on trusting the instincts that had guided successful decision-making throughout my personal and professional development, while remaining open to the possibility that temporary challenges might not reflect permanent character flaws. However, her underlying message clearly conveyed understanding that authentic love and respect should remain consistent across all circumstances, rather than fluctuating based on audience, stress levels, or competing priorities that might create temporary tensions within relationships. The professional responsibilities I had completed throughout the day provided welcome distraction from relationship anxieties, while reinforcing confidence in my capabilities and judgment that would prove essential for maintaining composure during whatever challenges the evening might present. The final client presentation for a comprehensive brand development project had proceeded exceptionally well, with stakeholder approval for creative concepts that reflected months of strategic planning and collaborative refinement between account management and creative development teams. This professional success served as a powerful reminder that my competence and value extended far beyond any single relationship, regardless of its emotional significance or social importance. The industry recognition and client satisfaction that characterized my career achievements had been earned through consistent excellence and strategic thinking that demonstrated capabilities worthy of respect from any serious romantic partner who possessed sufficient emotional maturity to appreciate professional accomplishment and creative contribution. The wardrobe selection process had required careful consideration of multiple factors that extended beyond personal aesthetic preferences to include strategic positioning for various potential outcomes that might develop during the evening's events. The navy blue cocktail dress I had chosen struck the appropriate balance between elegant formality suitable for an upscale restaurant celebration and classic simplicity that would photograph well for family memories, while avoiding any appearance of ostentation or inappropriate attention-seeking that might complicate social dynamics. The jewelry choices reflected similar strategic thinking, with pieces that honored my cultural heritage while complementing the engagement ring that symbolized commitment to shared future planning. The silver necklace that had belonged to my grandmother carried particular emotional significance as a connection to family strength and resilience that would provide psychological support during challenging moments, while serving as visible reminder of the values and expectations that my ancestors had established through their own courage, in facing difficult circumstances. The makeup and hairstyle preparation had been approached with professional precision that reflected my graphic design background and understanding of visual presentation principles. The goal was to create an appearance that enhanced natural features while projecting confidence and sophistication appropriate for someone whose achievements and capabilities merited respect, rather than condescension, from anyone claiming to love and support her personal and professional development. The mental preparation exercises I had developed during previous high-stress professional situations proved equally valuable for relationship challenges that required maintaining composure while processing complex emotional dynamics under public scrutiny. The visualization techniques that enabled effective performance during client presentations and creative development sessions could be adapted to social situations where authentic self-expression might conflict with immediate convenience or external expectations about appropriate behavior. The contingency planning I had undertaken for various potential scenarios reflected the same systematic approach to risk management that had enabled consistent success in project management and client relationship development throughout my career advancement. While I maintained genuine hope that the evening would proceed smoothly and provide positive reinforcement for our relationship foundation, the strategic thinking that characterized my professional practice demanded preparation for less favorable outcomes that might require immediate decision-making under emotional pressure. The specific scenarios I had considered included Alexander making additional condescending comments about my family or professional background, demonstrating continued prioritization of professional networking over meaningful personal relationships, or revealing additional aspects of character that fundamentally contradicted the partnership values we had supposedly established during our engagement planning. Each potential situation required predetermined response strategies that would enable authentic self-advocacy while maintaining dignity and composure appropriate for public settings. The financial independence that provided freedom to make relationship decisions based on personal values rather than economic necessity had been achieved through years of disciplined spending and strategic career advancement that consistently prioritized long-term security over immediate gratification. The substantial savings account and established income stream meant that any relationship termination would create emotional challenges without corresponding financial hardship that might complicate decision-making or create pressure to accept unsatisfactory partnership arrangements. This economic autonomy represented one of the most significant advantages I possessed in navigating relationship challenges, as it eliminated the practical constraints that often prevent women from maintaining appropriate standards when romantic partnerships fail to provide mutual respect and authentic emotional support. The freedom to prioritize personal integrity over financial convenience had been earned through professional competence and strategic planning that consistently emphasized independence and self-sufficiency as essential foundations for healthy relationship participation. The social support network I had cultivated throughout my Denver residence included close friendships with women whose own relationship experiences provided valuable perspective on navigating challenges while maintaining personal standards and emotional well-being. These relationships had been developed through professional associations, community involvement, and shared interest activities that created connections based on mutual respect and common values, rather than convenience or social proximity. The specific friends whose judgment and support I most valued had demonstrated their own courage in addressing relationship challenges and maintaining personal integrity when faced with partners who failed to provide appropriate respect or authentic commitment. Their examples had established benchmarks for evaluating my own situation, while providing practical guidance about response strategies that honor both emotional investment and personal dignity during difficult transitions. The conversation with my closest friend Maria Rodriguez during the afternoon had provided essential reality checking and emotional support, while reinforcing my confidence in the decision-making processes that had enabled consistent success in other life domains. Maria's perspective as someone who had observed my relationship with Alexander from its beginning through recent developments carried particular weight because she possessed both intimate knowledge of my values and objectives, and sufficient distance from the romantic attachment to maintain objectivity about compatibility factors. Her direct feedback about the changes she had noticed in Alexander's behavior and priorities during recent social interactions confirmed my own observations, while providing external validation for concerns I had been questioning due to emotional investment in positive relationship outcomes. Maria's encouragement to trust my instincts and maintain personal standards regardless of social pressures or relationship convenience had reinforced my commitment to authentic self-advocacy during whatever challenges the evening might present. The transportation arrangements for the evening had been planned to ensure independence and flexibility that would enable immediate departure if circumstances required protecting personal dignity through prompt exit from uncomfortable or disrespectful situations. Rather than relying on Alexander for transportation to and from the restaurant, I had arranged to drive separately under the explanation of work obligations that required arriving directly from client meetings and potentially departing early for weekend project deadlines. This logistical independence would prove essential for maintaining control over my own timeline and responses during the evening's events, eliminating practical constraints that might otherwise complicate decision-making if immediate action became necessary to protect personal integrity and emotional well-being. The ability to leave independently represented both practical preparation and psychological empowerment that would enable authentic responses based on personal values rather than transportation convenience or social awkwardness. The final telephone conversation with Alexander during the afternoon had provided one additional opportunity to gauge his emotional state and priorities, while offering subtle openings for addressing any concerns or tensions that might be resolved through direct communication before the public celebration. His responses had been characteristically charming and apparently enthusiastic about the evening's events, yet lacked the deeper emotional connection and genuine partnership focus that would have provided reassurance about his commitment to mutual respect and collaborative relationship building. The specific language Alexander had used during this conversation included references to the importance of making positive impressions on professional contacts and ensuring that the celebration would reflect appropriate appreciation for their attendance, suggesting that his priorities remained focused on networking opportunities rather than meaningful personal milestone celebration. His apparent excitement about introducing me to clients and colleagues felt strategic rather than romantic, reinforcing concerns about his motivations and understanding of authentic partnership dynamics. As departure time approached, the psychological preparation was complete. I had acknowledged the possibility that the evening might end our relationship while maintaining openness to positive outcomes that could restore confidence in our partnership foundation. The decision to proceed with attendance while maintaining complete readiness for decisive action represented the most courageous approach to protecting both emotional investment and personal integrity during circumstances that would test every value and standard I had established throughout my adult development. The point of no return had been reached. Whatever developments the evening would bring, my response would be guided by the principles that had enabled success in every other life domain, while honoring the family heritage and professional achievements that had established non-negotiable requirements for authentic respect and genuine partnership in any relationship worthy of my continued commitment and emotional investment. The arrival at Meridian Restaurant marked the beginning of what would become the most transformative evening of my adult life, though the elegant facade and warm greeting from the maitre d' provided no indication of the devastating revelations that would soon unfold. The restaurant's sophisticated atmosphere and impeccable service created the perfect backdrop for what Alexander had envisioned as a celebration that would enhance his professional reputation while publicly cementing our relationship status among Denver's business and social communities. The private dining room that Alexander had reserved represented the pinnacle of sophisticated event hosting, with crystal chandeliers casting warm light over mahogany furnishings and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline that had become my professional home over the previous 5 years. The floral arrangements he had selected reflected considerable expense and attention to visual impact, creating an environment that would undoubtedly impress the professional contacts whose attendance had become increasingly important to him throughout the planning process. The early guests who arrived during the cocktail reception period included several senior partners from Pinnacle Wealth Management, along with their spouses who represented the kind of established social network that Alexander aspired to join through marriage and professional advancement. These individuals possessed the refined mannerisms and confident bearing that reflected generations of financial security and social privilege, creating an atmosphere that felt distinctly different from the inclusive, family-centered celebration we had originally planned together. My interactions with these early arrivals revealed the careful evaluation process that was occurring beneath the surface of polite conversation and congratulatory remarks about our engagement. The questions I received about my professional background, family heritage, and personal interests carried undertones of assessment that suggested these individuals viewed my suitability as Alexander's partner through criteria that emphasized social compatibility and potential enhancement of his career trajectory rather than genuine personal qualities or relationship happiness. The specific inquiries about my graphic design work revealed assumptions about creative professions that reinforced concerns I had been developing about Alexander's own perspectives on the value and sophistication of my career achievements. Several conversations included subtle suggestions that creative work represented a temporary phase before transitioning to more traditional domestic responsibilities, while others demonstrated limited understanding of the strategic thinking and business acumen required for success in marketing and brand development. Alexander's behavior during these early interactions provided clear confirmation of the character changes I had been observing throughout recent weeks. His introductions of me to professional contacts emphasized his own accomplishments and career trajectory, while treating my presence as evidence of his personal success rather than acknowledging my individual achievements and professional competence. The language he used when discussing our relationship reflected ownership dynamics rather than partnership equality, suggesting perspectives on marriage that fundamentally contradicted our supposed shared commitment to mutual respect and collaborative decision-making. The arrival of my family members created a distinct shift in the social dynamics of the gathering, as my parents and siblings brought warmth and authenticity that contrasted sharply with the calculated networking atmosphere that had been established by Alexander's professional associates. My mother's elegant simplicity and genuine enthusiasm about the celebration represented values and priorities that highlighted the superficial nature of conversations that had been occurring among Alexander's business contacts. The interactions between my family and Alexander's professional circle revealed cultural and economic differences that should have been bridged by mutual respect and appreciation for diverse backgrounds and experiences. However, the condescending attitudes and limited engagement that several of Alexander's colleagues displayed toward my relatives demonstrated the kind of social prejudice that authentic partnership should actively challenge rather than accommodate or ignore for convenience. Alexander's response to these cross-cultural dynamics provided the most troubling evidence yet of his true character and values. Rather than facilitating meaningful connections between important people from different aspects of our lives, he appeared embarrassed by my family's working-class background and made subtle efforts to minimize their visibility and influence during conversations with professional contacts. His behavior suggested that he viewed my heritage as a liability to be managed, rather than a source of strength and cultural richness that enhanced our relationship. The toast preparation that occurred during the cocktail reception revealed Alexander's intentions for the evening's formal presentation of our engagement to the assembled guests. His conversations with the restaurant staff about audio equipment and timing suggested that he had planned an elaborate announcement that would serve his professional networking objectives while publicly establishing our relationship status in ways that would enhance his social standing within Denver's business community. The guest list dynamics became increasingly apparent as the reception progressed, with clear divisions between family members and close personal friends who had supported our relationship development versus professional associates and social acquaintances whose attendance served Alexander's career advancement goals. The conversations and interactions that developed naturally demonstrated fundamental differences in values and priorities that created tension rather than celebration during what should have been a joyful gathering of people who cared about our happiness and future success. My close friends from college and professional circles provided essential emotional support and reality checking as they observed the social dynamics and Alexander's behavior throughout the early evening events. Their subtle expressions of concern and occasional pointed questions about my comfort level with the evening's atmosphere confirmed that my growing unease was based on legitimate observations rather than anxiety or unrealistic expectations about celebration management. The specific comments that Maria Rodriguez and several other close friends made during private moments revealed that they had been noticing changes in Alexander's behavior and priorities that aligned with my own concerns about his character and commitment to authentic partnership. Their willingness to share these observations, despite the social awkwardness of criticizing someone's fiancé during his engagement party, demonstrated genuine care for my well-being and recognition that the evening was revealing important information about relationship compatibility. The dinner service progression provided additional opportunities to observe Alexander's priorities and social positioning strategies as he managed seating arrangements and conversation flow in ways that maximized his access to professional contacts, while limiting the influence of family members and personal friends who might interfere with his networking objectives. The careful orchestration of these interactions revealed strategic thinking that treated our engagement celebration as a business event rather than a personal milestone worthy of authentic emotional focus. The table conversations that developed during the meal courses demonstrated the fundamental incompatibility between Alexander's aspirations and the values that had shaped my personal and professional development. His eager participation in discussions about wealth management strategies, exclusive social club memberships, and luxury lifestyle acquisitions reflected priorities that emphasized material accumulation and status advancement over the collaborative relationship building and meaningful work that had provided foundation for my own life satisfaction. The specific topics that generated Alexander's most enthusiastic engagement included real estate investment opportunities in exclusive neighborhoods, vacation property acquisition strategies, and luxury automobile purchases that would enhance professional image among high-net-worth clients. These conversations revealed perspectives on success and happiness that fundamentally differed from my own emphasis on creative fulfillment, family relationships, and community contribution as sources of authentic life satisfaction. The wine service throughout the dinner provided additional evidence of Alexander's priorities, as he selected premium vintages that would impress professional contacts, rather than choosing options that reflected personal preferences or consideration for guests who might be more comfortable with moderate alcohol consumption. His detailed discussions about vintage years and vineyard reputations suggested expertise that had been developed for social positioning rather than genuine appreciation for wine culture or hospitality excellence. The interaction patterns that emerged during dinner conversations revealed Alexander's skill at managing multiple relationship dynamics simultaneously while maintaining the charming facade that had initially attracted my interest and sustained our relationship development over 15 months. His ability to provide appropriate attention to various guests while advancing his professional networking objectives demonstrated sophisticated social competence that made his underlying character flaws more difficult to identify without careful observation over extended periods. The building tension throughout the dinner service created anticipation for the formal toast that would mark the evening's ceremonial highlight and provide Alexander with the platform he had been preparing to use for maximum impact among assembled professional contacts. The careful timing and staging of this presentation suggested extensive planning that emphasized dramatic effect and audience management, rather than authentic emotional expression or genuine celebration of our relationship milestone. The staff coordination and technical preparation that preceded the formal toast revealed the elaborate nature of Alexander's planned presentation, with audio equipment positioning and lighting adjustments that suggested a performance designed to create lasting impressions rather than spontaneous sharing of happiness and gratitude for guest attendance and support. The professional production values reflected investment and planning that seemed disproportionate to intimate celebration needs while perfectly aligned with networking event objectives. As the moment for formal remarks approached, the social dynamics that had been developing throughout the evening reached their culmination, with clear divisions between guests who had attended to celebrate genuine affection and relationship success versus those who viewed the event as professional opportunity or social obligation. The tension between these competing purposes had created an atmosphere that felt increasingly artificial and strategic, rather than joyful and authentic. The psychological preparation I had undertaken during recent weeks proved essential for maintaining composure, as evidence accumulated that the evening would indeed test my commitment to personal integrity and authentic self-advocacy. The contingency planning and emotional readiness that had enabled professional success during challenging client situations would soon be applied to the most significant personal crisis of my adult life, determining whether courage or convenience would guide my response to whatever revelations Alexander's formal presentation might contain. The storm clouds that had been gathering throughout recent weeks were about to break, and the evening that was supposed to celebrate our shared future would instead become the catalyst for the most important lesson about self-worth and personal boundaries that I would ever learn. The formal presentation moment arrived with the kind of orchestrated precision that reflected Alexander's careful planning and strategic positioning throughout the evening's events. The restaurant staff had dimmed the ambient lighting while positioning spotlights that would ensure maximum visual impact for his remarks, creating a theatrical atmosphere that seemed more appropriate for corporate presentations than intimate relationship celebrations. The elaborate staging confirmed my growing recognition that Alexander viewed this occasion as a professional opportunity rather than a genuine expression of love and commitment to our shared future. Alexander's approach to the microphone demonstrated the polished confidence that had initially attracted my attention during our first meeting at the Marketing Professionals Networking event 18 months earlier. His commanding presence and sophisticated demeanor created immediate attention from assembled guests, who represented the careful balance of family members, personal friends, and professional contacts that he had orchestrated for maximum career advancement benefit. The practiced ease with which he commanded the room reflected extensive experience in public speaking and audience management that served his financial advisory practice effectively. The opening remarks that Alexander delivered included appropriate expressions of gratitude for guest attendance and acknowledgement of the significance of celebrating our engagement with the most important people in our respective lives. His initial comments struck the perfect balance between personal warmth and professional sophistication, creating positive expectations among attendees who had gathered to honor our relationship milestone and share in the happiness that successful partnerships represent for extended family and friend networks. However, the subtle shift in tone and content that occurred as Alexander's presentation progressed revealed underlying perspectives and priorities that contradicted the partnership values we had supposedly established during our relationship development. The language he began using to describe our relationship emphasized his role as provider and decision-maker, while minimizing my individual achievements and contributions to our shared success. His characterization of marriage as an arrangement that would benefit him through domestic support while advancing his professional objectives suggested fundamental misunderstanding of authentic partnership dynamics. The specific moment when Alexander's true character became undeniably apparent occurred when he transitioned from general relationship appreciation to detailed discussion of the practical benefits he anticipated from marriage. His comments about securing a partner who would enhance his social standing while managing household responsibilities revealed perspectives on gender roles and relationship purposes that fundamentally contradicted the mutual respect and collaborative decision-making that had supposedly guided our engagement planning and future goal development. The devastating climax of Alexander's presentation came when he made direct reference to concerns that some professional colleagues had expressed about his choice of partner, specifically addressing assumptions about my motivations for accepting his marriage proposal. His decision to acknowledge and respond to suggestions that I might be pursuing relationship with him for financial advantage created the public humiliation scenario that would test every principle of self-respect and personal dignity that had guided my adult development. Alexander's exact words created a moment of absolute silence among assembled guests as the implications of his statement registered throughout the room. His declaration that he was confident in marrying me, despite others suggesting I might be, quote, just another gold digger looking for financial security, transformed our engagement celebration into a character assassination that revealed his fundamental lack of respect for my independence, professional achievements, and personal integrity. The casual manner in which he delivered this devastating insult suggested complete disconnect from the emotional impact of his words. The immediate aftermath of Alexander's statement created a psychological crisis that demanded instant decision-making about how to respond to public humiliation that challenged every aspect of my self-worth and relationship investment. The shocked expressions on family members' faces reflected their recognition that they had witnessed something unprecedented and devastating, while the uncomfortable shifting among Alexander's professional contacts suggested their awareness that they had observed inappropriate behavior that violated basic standards of respect and partnership consideration. My mother's visible distress provided immediate confirmation that Alexander's words had crossed fundamental boundaries of acceptable treatment that no authentic partnership should tolerate regardless of circumstances or audience considerations. Her expression of horror and disappointment validated my own emotional response while reinforcing the family values that demanded decisive action to protect personal dignity and demonstrate that disrespectful treatment would not be accepted under any circumstances. The professional colleagues who had gathered to network and evaluate Alexander's personal judgment witnessed behavior that revealed character flaws incompatible with the trust and ethical standards that successful financial advisory relationships require. Their uncomfortable reactions suggested recognition that someone who would publicly humiliate his partner lacked the interpersonal competence and emotional intelligence necessary for managing sensitive client relationships and confidential financial planning responsibilities. The decision-making process that occurred during the seconds immediately following Alexander's insulting characterization required accessing every resource of courage and self-respect that had been developed through years of professional challenges and personal growth experiences. The accumulated evidence of his changing priorities and diminishing respect had prepared me for this moment, yet the public nature of his betrayal created additional complexity that demanded immediate action to protect not only personal dignity but family honor and professional reputation. The strategic thinking that had enabled consistent success in client relationship management and creative problem-solving provided essential frameworks for responding effectively to this unprecedented personal crisis. The same analytical capabilities that had produced innovative marketing campaigns and satisfied demanding clients could be applied to relationship challenges that required maintaining composure while delivering decisive responses that would protect long-term interests and demonstrate authentic self-advocacy. The physical positioning within the restaurant's private dining room required careful navigation to access the microphone and audio equipment that would enable effective response to Alexander's public statements. The logistical challenges of moving through assembled guests while maintaining dignified composure under extreme emotional pressure demanded the kind of professional presence and confidence that had been cultivated through years of high-stakes client presentations and industry conference speaking opportunities. The psychological preparation that had occurred throughout recent weeks proved essential for maintaining clarity and purpose during the most challenging interpersonal confrontation of my adult life. The contingency planning and emotional readiness that had enabled effective performance during difficult professional situations could be adapted to personal circumstances that required authentic self-expression while protecting relationships with family members and friends who deserved consideration despite their proximity to uncomfortable revelations. The moment of walking toward the microphone represented crossing a threshold from which retreat would be impossible, committing to responses that would fundamentally alter not only my relationship with Alexander but also my understanding of personal strength and capacity for courage when facing circumstances that test every principle of self-respect and authentic living. The decision to speak publicly rather than exit quietly reflected confidence in my own judgment and commitment to demonstrating that intelligence and integrity could triumph over manipulation and disrespect. The silence that had descended over the dining room created perfect acoustics for ensuring that every guest would hear my response clearly, eliminating any possibility that Alexander could later minimize or mischaracterize the significance of his insulting remarks, or my decisive reaction to his public betrayal. The attention focused on my approach to the microphone reflected recognition among attendees that they were witnessing a critical moment that would determine how this devastating situation would be resolved. The eye contact that I established with Alexander during my approach revealed his growing awareness that his calculated presentation had produced consequences he had not anticipated or prepared to manage effectively. His expression shifted from confident satisfaction to confusion and concern, as he recognized that his attempt to address professional colleagues' concerns about my motivations had created a crisis that threatened his carefully orchestrated networking event and relationship management objectives. The family members whose presence provided essential emotional support included my parents, whose immigration experience and work ethic had established standards for self-respect and dignity that would guide my response to circumstances that challenged fundamental values about respect and partnership. Their visible distress at witnessing their daughter's public humiliation reinforced my commitment to demonstrating that the strength and courage they had modeled throughout my upbringing had prepared me for exactly this type of character test. The close friends whose judgment and support had been essential throughout my relationship development with Alexander provided additional sources of strength and validation as I prepared to respond to his devastating betrayal. Their encouraging expressions and subtle gestures of support confirmed that my planned response reflected appropriate self-advocacy, rather than emotional overreaction to challenging but potentially manageable relationship difficulties. The professional contacts whose evaluation of Alexander's character and judgment would influence his career advancement opportunities represented an audience whose witness to my response would either validate his insulting characterization or demonstrate his fundamental failure to understand the competence and integrity of the woman he claimed to love. Their attention to the developing confrontation created accountability that would prevent any later attempts to revise or minimize the significance of the evening's revelations. The moment of reaching the microphone and preparing to address the assembled guests marked the culmination of weeks of psychological preparation and strategic planning that had enabled readiness for exactly this type of crisis. The public platform that Alexander had provided for humiliating me would become the venue for demonstrating that authentic self-respect could not be compromised by anyone, regardless of their professional status, social connections, or previous emotional significance in my personal development. The deep breath that preceded my response represented gathering strength from every source of confidence and competence that had been developed through years of professional achievement, family support, and personal growth experiences that had prepared me for precisely this moment, when courage would either triumph over convenience or reveal fundamental weaknesses in character that would define my response to the most significant test of personal integrity I had ever faced. The microphone felt surprisingly steady in my hands as I faced the assembled guests who had witnessed Alexander's devastating betrayal, their shocked expressions reflecting the collective recognition that they had observed something unprecedented and fundamentally inappropriate during what should have been a celebration of love and commitment. The silence that had descended over Meridian's private dining room created perfect acoustics for the response that would either validate Alexander's insulting characterization or demonstrate the profound error in judgment he had just revealed to everyone present. My voice carried clearly throughout the dining room as I began speaking with the same professional composure that had enabled successful client presentations and industry conference addresses throughout my career advancement. The techniques I had developed for maintaining clarity and confidence during high-pressure business situations proved equally valuable for personal circumstances that demanded authentic self-advocacy, while preserving relationships with family members and friends who deserved consideration despite their proximity to uncomfortable revelations. The opening words of my response acknowledged the significance of the occasion and expressed genuine appreciation for the family members and close friends who had gathered to celebrate what they believed represented a meaningful relationship milestone. This gracious beginning established my respect for the people who mattered most while creating contrast with the disrespectful treatment I had just received from the person who claimed to love and honor me above all others. The transition into addressing Alexander's insulting remarks required careful balance between authentic emotional expression and strategic communication that would protect my professional reputation while demonstrating the character strength that authentic self-respect demands when fundamental boundaries are violated. The language I chose reflected both the pain of betrayal and the confidence that comes from knowing one's worth is not dependent on external validation from anyone, regardless of their social status or professional achievements. My direct response to Alexander's characterization of me as a potential gold digger addressed the factual inaccuracies in his statement, while highlighting the deeper character flaws that his comments revealed about his understanding of partnership, respect, and genuine love. The specific details I provided about my financial independence, professional achievements, and family values served multiple purposes: correcting false impressions, educating guests about my actual circumstances, and demonstrating that his insults reflected his limitations rather than accurate assessments of my character or motivations. The documentation of my professional success that I shared with assembled guests included specific achievements that contradicted any suggestion that I required financial support from romantic partners to maintain comfortable living standards or pursue personal goals. The clients I had served, the industry recognition I had earned, and the financial independence I had achieved through competence and strategic career planning provided irrefutable evidence that my relationship choices were based on emotional compatibility rather than economic necessity. The reference to my family heritage that I included in my response honored the immigrant experience and work ethic that had shaped my values, while challenging any assumptions about social or economic background that might have influenced Alexander's colleagues' perspectives on my suitability as a partner. The strength and dignity that my parents had demonstrated throughout their journey to establish successful lives in American communities provided examples of authentic character that contrasted sharply with the superficial values that Alexander's remarks had revealed. The educational background and professional credentials that I outlined for the assembled guests demonstrated intellectual competence and strategic thinking capabilities that merited respect from anyone claiming to understand quality and value in potential partners. The degree in graphic design, the successful client relationships, and the industry expertise I had developed represented investments in personal development that created value independent of any romantic relationship or financial arrangement with other individuals. The savings account and financial planning that I had accomplished through disciplined spending and strategic career advancement provided concrete evidence of personal responsibility and long-term thinking that contradicted any characterization of me as someone seeking financial advantage through marriage. The specific details I shared about my economic independence eliminated any possibility that guests could maintain illusions about my motivations for accepting Alexander's marriage proposal. The cultural values and family traditions that had guided my relationship decisions represented foundations for authentic partnership that emphasized mutual respect, collaborative decision-making, and genuine emotional connection, rather than transactional arrangements based on financial convenience or social advancement. The contrast between these principles and the strategic networking that had characterized our engagement celebration became apparent to everyone present as I articulated the standards that any serious romantic partner should meet consistently. The professional network and industry relationships that I had developed through competence and integrity provided additional evidence of my capacity for building meaningful connections based on mutual respect and shared values, rather than superficial characteristics or economic considerations. The colleagues who had become genuine friends, and the clients who had become advocates for my work, demonstrated social skills and personal character that merited appreciation, rather than condescension from anyone claiming to love and support my continued development. The creative accomplishments and artistic vision that had enabled consistent client satisfaction and industry recognition represented intellectual contributions that enhanced organizational success and community development in ways that deserved acknowledgement rather than dismissal. The campaigns I had developed, the brands I had strengthened, and the creative solutions I had implemented provided tangible evidence of capabilities that added value to every professional relationship and collaborative project I had undertaken. The decision-making process that had led to accepting Alexander's marriage proposal had been based on careful evaluation of compatibility factors, shared values, and mutual respect that I had believed characterized our relationship foundation. The revelation that he viewed our partnership through strategic lenses rather than emotional commitment demonstrated fundamental deception that invalidated the entire basis for our engagement and future planning activities. The disappointment and betrayal that I acknowledged feeling reflected genuine emotional investment in what I had believed represented authentic love and partnership commitment. However, the pain of discovering Alexander's true character could not justify accepting continued disrespectful treatment or proceeding with marriage arrangements that would require tolerating fundamental incompatibilities in values and priorities that would inevitably create ongoing conflict and dissatisfaction. The strength and courage that enabled my public response to Alexander's insulting remarks had been developed through years of facing professional challenges, navigating cultural differences, and maintaining personal integrity when external pressures created incentives for compromise or convenient self-deception. The same principles that had guided successful decision-making throughout my career advancement would determine my response to relationship circumstances that tested every standard of self-respect and authentic living. The family support and close friendships that provided essential emotional foundation during this crisis represented relationships built through mutual respect, genuine care, and consistent demonstration of character strength during challenging circumstances. These connections offered models for healthy relationship dynamics that contrasted sharply with the manipulative and strategic approach that Alexander had revealed through his public humiliation and ongoing behavioral patterns. The professional reputation and industry standing that I had earned through consistent excellence and ethical conduct provided security and confidence that enabled authentic responses to personal challenges without concern for external validation or approval from individuals whose judgment reflected limited understanding of competence and character. The success I had achieved through integrity and hard work, could not be diminished by anyone's insulting characterizations or strategic relationship manipulations. The moment of announcing my decision to terminate our engagement represented the culmination of weeks of psychological preparation and strategic planning that had enabled readiness for exactly this type of crisis. The public platform that Alexander had provided for humiliating me became the venue for demonstrating that authentic self-respect required immediate and decisive action when fundamental boundaries were violated, regardless of social convenience or emotional attachment to relationship outcomes. The specific words I used to announce the engagement termination were chosen for clarity and finality that would eliminate any possibility of misunderstanding or later attempts to minimize the significance of Alexander's betrayal and my corresponding response. The direct statement that our wedding was canceled effective immediately provided unambiguous communication that protected both my dignity and the interests of family members and friends who deserved accurate information about changed circumstances. The ring removal that accompanied my announcement created visual confirmation of the decision, while symbolically rejecting the commitment that Alexander had revealed to be based on strategic considerations rather than genuine love and respect. The action demonstrated that material possessions and social symbols held no value when the relationships they represented failed to meet basic standards of partnership and mutual consideration. The explanation I provided for my decision emphasized the fundamental incompatibility between Alexander's revealed character and the values that any authentic marriage requires for sustainable success. The specific reference to his demonstrated lack of respect for my background, achievements, and personal dignity illustrated relationship deficiencies that could not be resolved through discussion or compromise because they reflected basic perspectives on partnership that contradicted everything healthy relationships require. The gratitude I expressed toward family members and genuine friends who had supported our relationship development acknowledged their positive intentions while protecting them from any responsibility for the evening's devastating revelations. The appreciation I conveyed for their presence and continued support created foundation for ongoing relationships that would provide essential emotional resources during the challenging transition period that would follow this public confrontation. The final statement that concluded my response established clear expectations for future interactions while maintaining the dignity and composure that professional success had taught me to preserve during difficult circumstances. The calm but firm delivery of my message demonstrated that authentic strength comes from alignment between personal values and public actions, rather than from external validation or approval from individuals whose judgment reflects incompatible priorities and character limitations. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.